Let's see. So I will call the meeting to order at 7:35 p.m. And I'll start by reading what I normally have to read in this day and age. So in accordance with the governor's order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law, general law, chapter 30A, section 20, relating to the novel coronavirus outbreak emergency, the January 11th, 2021 at 7:30 p.m. public meeting of the Norfolk Recreation Commission shall be physically closed to the public to avoid group congregation. Alternative public access to this meeting shall be utilizing the Zoom virtual meeting software for remote access. This application will allow users to view the meeting and send a comment or question to the chair via the chat function. Submitted text comments may be read into the record at the appropriate points in the meeting if they are in line with town's public comment policy. The meeting will be recorded for future rebroadcast by Norfolk Community Television, and you can visit the town website for more information on that. So we'll do minutes real quick. I know we have the December 1st. I'm not sure we have September 21st yet.
No.
Okay.
Charlie, do you still have the Zoom recording for that?
No, I honestly, the October, November were just so chaotic for us. I'd have to go through it, but we were just a lot of health issues in our household that month.
So the reason I'm asking is because I don't actually know that it's available anymore. NCTV got in touch with me asking me for it, and I sent them what I had. I sent them the email and the link, and she said the link is no longer, that it's no longer on the cloud.
Oh, that's weird.
So
right, I can call you tomorrow and we can troubleshoot.
Okay.
Yeah.
You might have downloaded them, and if you downloaded them, you have them. So I just thought I'd throw it out there.
Okay.
Okay. So then, has everyone had a chance to review the December 1st minutes? All right, then I will make a motion to accept the December 1st, 2020 meeting minutes as written.
Second.
All right, any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
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 All right, the motion passes unanimously. We have the citizen speak portion. I see Donna is in the audience. Donna, do you have anything you'd like to say at this point? Or are you just going to hang in and listen to the meeting?
Just hanging in.
Awesome. Glad to have you here.
Thanks for asking.
All right, so programming updates in remote learning centers. So Ann, I'll give you the floor now just to give us a brief update on what's been going on since we last met.
Okay, so we had some programming over this December, the 3 days of programming. People signed up by the day, and we had the maximum amount that the room would allow with social distancing, and the programs were full. So that was terrific. So we had, I think, 14 one day and 12 the 2 other days. So that was very successful. Winter field hockey, the Winter Field Hockey League is starting this week. We don't have indoor space that we can use free, certainly. There are no gyms available. We have talked to Four Kicks. Four Kicks is, we can use a court before 4 o'clock, and actually it's really before 3 p.m. on weekdays, and that's $75 an hour. I am trying to figure out something for some preschool running around activity time, and just we're continuing through that. We're going to get in touch with one of the indoor baseball places to see if we could use, if they bring up their nets, we're wondering if we can use space there, hopefully for not so much money, so we can price the programs at a fee that is reasonable. The remote learning is going very well. Other than Mondays, for grades 4 through 6, we're pretty busy. So we are not renting the Grange or paying for the Grange on Mondays. It's interesting. We have two or three grades 4 through 6 on Monday. They just come to the town hall with the other group. But then Tuesday we have 10 and 12, and then on Wednesday we have 20. So it goes from basically 0 to 20 pretty quickly. Remote learning actually changing this week for all students. They're going to be having a lot more meet times. So we're gearing up for that, and we're adjusting to that. We did have 2 people leave one person is still here for a couple of more weeks, but they're college students that are going back to college. So we only have to replace one for 3 days. The other, we were able to fill in for the other days. So we'll be working on that as in the next week or so. And we'll also be working on additional vacation programming for February and April. And we're starting to look at the summer programming. I've actually already booked Challenger soccer, and we'll start to do some planning for the summer. We won't be able to do our own program, our own camp-like program, until we hear from the state as to what we can do. But everything else we're starting to look at.
Excellent. Anyone have any comments, questions, concerns on that topic? Excellent. Well, from what I've heard, it's been going great. I've heard only good feedback, so
That's great.
awesome. Yeah, it's awesome.
If anyone sees anything on the community page, please let me know, because I still don't have my Facebook page back yet. It's from being hacked, so I can't see anything on Facebook.
I will let you know. I haven't seen anything, only positives from what I've seen. So
Yeah. I did hear that someone had asked about the Pond Street and having it, the new Pond Street, even though we allow it currently for astronomical viewing.
yeah, I responded to that one.
Thank you very
Mhm.
much.
Yep. And I had talked to him before, I think.
Yeah,
So, all right. So the next item then is the new town employee code of conduct. So I don't know if that was sent out. Did everyone receive that, or was that just me?
I think it was just you. I have not
I
received.
didn't get it.
Okay. Ann, did you get that?
I did. I thought it said it was addressed to all the boards, so I didn't go through the list. I
It might have
don't
just
even know if
been
I
me.
saw the list.
Yeah,
But I can forward
I
it.
might have just been me. It might have just been chairs that they sent it to.
Okay, I don't,
So I will have to table that because I will send it out for the next meeting. I don't want to send it out and have, I would like you guys to have time to look at it beforehand. Essentially, from HR, we got a new code of conduct, and it sounded like they were asking each board to approve it, and then you could agree to it, you could choose to not agree with it, is the way I read it.
so I think there's actually a code of conduct for board members. And
Yeah.
it's something that you all have to abide by, and I probably sign off on.
Yeah, and that's what I had read, that it seemed as though that you had the option to adopt it, this particular code of conduct. So maybe it's worth getting some more clarification on that one, because I haven't signed it yet for that reason, just because I figured it needed to be discussed. So I can table that for next time. Myself. All right. I just had assumed wrongfully that everyone received that. All right, while we have everyone here, probably the number one thing we need to discuss as a group is the field fee revisions. Anne has been talking to a lot of the different town leagues, softball, baseball, to name a few, who are starting their registration now. I know baseball's open, and I assume softball is probably open very shortly. So we need to make sure we have kind of our I's dotted and our T's crossed with what we're going to charge them for fees this year, so they can plan ahead in order to, in order so they can budget this year. So I don't know if Ann, you want to talk a little bit about that?
I can. If their registrations are already open, I'm a little concerned that they haven't incorporated enough for any field increases, but I have been talking to them, so and I did tell them we were meeting in January. So sort of the long and short of it is we charge per person, and no matter what, if it's a organization that plays once a week, if it's an organization that plays 5 days a week, we still charge the same amount. I think the goal is to use those field fees and be able to maintain the fields at an acceptable level. it's very tricky, especially with baseball and infields and even softball with the skin fields. I mean, they don't have as much to maintain, but to maintain fields, baseball fields, I mean, we really should be having them cleaned up by the person, Jeff, that person we had in, or if we don't have the ability in-house to do it, which doesn't seem that we do on a regular basis or a basis that DPW can commit to. And the field fees right now really don't come close to allowing us to do that. Not that we have to immediately charge a lot more and have them done all the time, but I think this year, if nothing else, showed us that, without Norfolk Youth Soccer, which is a very large organization, playing there, that was a big hit to the field fees, not taking those in. And, but they're using soccer fields. So I don't, and I think some of it is sharing, like, sometimes you fix soccer fields, and you fix soccer fields. I mean, if you top dress and seed and stuff, it can be $4,000. I mean, it's not like soccer fields are inexpensive, but I don't think they need as much regular maintenance. So I think there should be consideration by the Rec Commission about, do we charge everyone the same amount of money? So we charge basically $30 a player. And that can be for 8 to 10 weeks. And it can be from, soccer, Norfolk Youth Soccer, it's twice a week. Travel soccer, it's 3 times a week, 2 practices and a game. Softball, the little kindergartners, softball and baseball can be, I think, once or twice a week, but baseball can be up to 4 or 5 times a week. Others, softball can be 3 times a week. So when you look at some softball and baseball playing on fields that need the most maintenance, playing the most often, and we're charging them the same amount that we're charging even kindergartners in their own sport, the same amount, there seems to be a little bit of, we could say, it's all equal, we're all going to share, and that's fine, but I think we need to decide that. Another option is going to, per hour, which will be, definitely more work for us. I do think, people are used to just using the fields when they want to use the fields because they're allocated per person. So it's not that they may not realize that they have to tell us per hour and pay us per hour. But, maybe Kim, how did other organizations do it? I'm assuming you're familiar.
I am. And I mean, I'm the owner of a field hockey club. So, we do deal with field allocation times and pricing. That's a big part of, being an owner. I deal with the pricing per person for field time based upon, and what you're saying makes sense because, we either do it one of 2 ways. It's either age bracket wise, if we have older kids on the turf for a longer period of time, obviously they're on more often than the younger kids. So if they're on 3 times a week, as opposed to the younger kids only on 1 time a week, then there's a huge differential, but I'm a private entity. So, it would make sense though, even coming at it from not a private business perspective, but as a mom in the community that, like my younger Mia, she would, if she does the youth soccer, she goes there once a week for 45 minutes. Or, if she did the little kid softball, she'd go once a week for, 45 minutes. So what would make sense to me in this perspective would be either dividing it proportionately by the time allocation for each child, or you could do it by the age bracket. So the kindergartners typically are not going to play 3 times a week, nor are the first graders. usually the second graders, so K through 2 would be a once a week fee, maybe the 30 or the $20 or something, or maybe even less. And then for the next bracket of kids, let's say like the, fourth graders through 6th or 7th or 8th, I mean, they'd be another range per person. And then the high schoolers even more so. I mean, typically what I have is as they get older, the practices are more. When they're younger, they're less. So there should be a fair equity on that. I think it's been workable, but in my opinion, I think that there should be a little more equality for time usage versus, non-usage. I mean,
Yeah.
I think of course, you're on the right track. And I think it's much easier in this situation to sort of just do it by age bracket. Because then typically, if you're in K through 2, you're not practicing 5 days a week. And unless sometimes there are, I think we'd all need to look at that.
I did ask, so Norfolk soccer is second grade and up, and they do practice 3 times a week. But you're right about the kindergarten and maybe even grade 1. I'm not sure about baseball with grade 1, but certainly I know softball, 3rd grade through 8th graders, it's at least 2, if not 4 events a week.
Yeah, and so that would make sense that the younger kids, the Ks and the 1s, wouldn't be in the same pay scale. So maybe there could be a sliding scale of some sort, or you could do it by person, by sport, which does it have to be everything the same? Is that how it has to be when it's a public town kind of thing? I mean,
it doesn't have to all be the same. I have asked some other towns what they do, and different places do different things.
Okay.
A lot of what they do is based, however, on the field. If they have most towns, and I have to say this is really sad, but Norfolk and Rentham and Plainville, the lack of turf fields we have, I don't know of any other towns that have so little.
So little.
I mean, it's just
sad because even if the high school, the high school as a girls varsity, when I was coaching the varsity field hockey team at the high school, I couldn't even get time for my varsity team to use the turf. And other towns were like, we're playing on grass. We're a varsity team. This is insanity. And other towns were getting really angry.
Yeah, they do.
And they get
especially
very
with field
angry.
hockey.
It's not the norm anymore.
No, it's
and
not.
So it really does stink, Anne, that there's not more. And I do hope with, this new project, there'll be some thought on that, because it's very unfortunate for the kids in the town, and it is doing them a disservice on many levels.
So one of the things like Medway, they rent out, if you're using their turf field, it's one fee. If they're using a grass field, it's another fee. If you have turf fields and you rent to private organizations, that subsidizes the in-town players, but we don't rent to outside players. If anything, KP high school players, the soccer players don't pay anything to play. And honestly, if they didn't use our soccer fields, I don't know where they would be playing.
I know. So my club, we train at Nobles. That's a private school, but we also train at Westwood High School, and they charge us a lot of money per hour to train on that field. And they don't charge their town people the same because I'm a private entity.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
So Nobles charges?
Yes, they do. Yeah. But it's a private school, so it's very inexpensive. They charge us, it's not a lot. Westwood High School would be a little bit more in line with what you would want to charge. And I'm happy to work on that with you offline, or whatever, you need my help with on that, because I'm very in tune with pricing and all that, but from the private sector. So in terms of you needing to get some fees for
So
for somebody who's gonna use our fields.
there's a recreation meeting a week from Wednesday, and I have put on the agenda, I've asked towns to please tell me if they charge per hour, if they charge per person. And I've done this a few times.
What I pay is that, except I can do that now,
Okay,
if you want. So what we pay to Westwood, the town of Westwood, we pay $150 an hour for turf.
yeah, for turf. So that's, yeah.
So on this topic, I'm kind of seeing, I think we're balancing kind of four things. The four things that I'm seeing we need to balance our time and and your time and Kathy's time in the office. Something that's hourly sounds simple, sounds easy, but it could get a little burdensome.
I think the hourly part there would be a lot of monitoring. And that's actually one of the questions I put out onto the agenda for the rec people is how much monitoring do you have to do? Do you have to have people at the fields? What happens if people use fields when, it happens with baseball and softball all the time.
Yeah.
And it's not because they're doing anything wrong. It's because it's right. They've been allocated the fields per person
Right.
for a long time.
So I see that as one, balancing the time, office time. I see balancing fairness between different leagues, different age groups as a factor. I see balancing the revenue, the fact that we need to make sure we make enough to cover the maintenance costs and then some. And then balancing the time of our leagues. I think a lot of the information, I don't think it's fair to give a league, especially a local league like softball or soccer, a 35-page questionnaire on who's playing, how often are they playing, what age brackets are you playing. Like that information is readily available to someone probably like Kim in the private sector, but a volunteer league, that information is going to oftentimes be guessed. Someone's not going to sit down and really do a hard drill down analysis of how many games on each field on each day. So my thought on this whole process is maybe we look at something like we did with our tournament policy. So the tournament policy, correct me if I'm wrong, we do something, it's a 0 to 100 per game sliding scale that we can choose based on the different factors of the tournament, what they're covering, what they're doing, how many games there are. We can assess a different per game fee. So perhaps we look at something like that for the general field fees, and we can just get a general feel from each organization when they're going to use the field. Some basic questions like how many games per week, which fields are you using, what age group of the players, stuff like that. And we can make a more fair determination that way. Or we could maybe go the route you said where we could pick different fees per field. I would lean away for something that's going to be too burdensome, like an hourly thing, or something that's going to require too much paperwork.
Well, I think if, to Kim's point, age brackets, all the leagues know their age brackets. You have to, you sign up by the age bracket.
Yeah,
So
I was just going to say, and to that point, the wear and tear that somebody in kindergarten has
Right.
on a baseball field or a soccer field, or even a first grader, or a second grader or third grader, even if you were to bring in really early age youth sports, from a lacrosse or field hockey perspective, is vastly different than what a middle schooler has and high schooler has. So I think the age is probably a good basis to start on. Also too, because, participating in these leagues costs money. And obviously I'm a huge proponent of my children participating in lacrosse and baseball and things of that nature. But you're asked to put up all these fees, and then what they're actually getting is, it's hard to argue that their field fees should be the same field fee of what a middle school or high school is getting, because you're actually really getting the technical aspects of the sport in middle school and high school. Where in kindergarten, earlier ages, it's really about camaraderie, it's having fun, it's getting the basis of the game and getting understanding of it. But I do think that we should look at it from an age perspective, purely based on the maintenance factor alone. Everything else could be, just gravy on top of that, but,
Right, so we'd be looking for an organization to break out, say we have this many players of this age, this many players of this age, so on and so forth, and then have a tiered structure,
Yeah.
a per player fee based
Yeah.
on that.
Yeah, and I think, I mean, if, please correct me if anyone knows differently, but I think every organization, because they base their game schedule by age, they know the age of the players.
Yeah, no, I don't think that that's too much. I just don't want something that's gonna, blossom into more than, a couple key data points, that's totally fine. I think everyone has that, but something that they're gonna have to break out, how many players per week from a different town play on this field and how many players of a different age from, stuff that's really minute. I don't want to get too much into the weeds, but that knowing the age bracket and the amount per age, that's not difficult at all.
Yeah.
That's something
Yeah.
that organizations should readily have.
Even just, I mean, from a very small example, we have a home backyard ice rink that we put together, and it's great. It's the first year we ever did an ice rink for my kids, and my daughter Mia was on it all day today from 11 o'clock with, Ava got home from school, so the girls were on it. No problem, all day, everything was wonderful. Tonight, my son has 4 of his friends, over out there skating. They just said, oh, the rink cracked, Mom, and the ice cracked. And well, yeah, because they're 4 men, on them. So now my husband's gonna have to go out and hose it down. And so I think that's just a perfect example of the wear and tear at the age. It's about the ages of the kids and the hard play and the, like you were saying, about when they're little, it's more camaraderie. When they're older, they're attacking the field. So I think
all
that's
right.
a great way to do it.
So I'll go with that. So I don't have a number. I mean, I'm certainly not a complete expert in what we have for, numbers. I know we're at $30 now. I don't know if that's something we need to agree on at this
Well,
point.
$30 was set, it's been quite some time. It's been $30. And that was always with the understanding that was twice a week, using the field twice a week. So I think that for the older, I'm going to do, I'll do a little bit of a spreadsheet, sort of what I expect to see. And again, I don't know everyone's numbers, but I have a pretty good idea. And I'll do some compare, what if we drop the price for, people using it 1 time a week under a certain age, and then go from there. I mean,
Yeah,
but I think, the adults that play soccer once a week, they're pretty hard on the field. So I think they're going to stay the same, even though it's once a week.
And I think comparing that to what our actual costs are every year for maintaining the fields, I think that's a good analysis that needs to be done in order to come to that number. So I think that might be
Okay.
something good for next time to have drilled down so we can maybe agree on something. Because I think we're on the right track here.
And real quick, I mean, I just did like K through 2, 15 per hour, grades 3 to 6, 20 per hour, middle school, 25, and then high school and adults, 30.
Tim, we charge $30 per player now. If we did that, we would be losing money, and we would not be able to, those fees, like we would be taking in a lot less.
Yeah, I think we need to gather some data and then determine like
On how many people, right?
Well, how much we spend. I mean, we're this year it was very apparent that we were short from money from certain organizations, even though they were paying us $7,000 or $8,000. It was still, baseball fields. I'm not just taking care of the infields. I also have to, fertilize and pay for the fertilizer. I mean, I wasn't covering the costs for baseball with baseball fees.
Yeah, and I think that's probably the second layer to the discussion after we determine what we're going to do per age. Do we want to vary those fees based on field?
Yeah, I was just gonna say field or sport. You could look at it from that perspective too. The other thing that I have a concern about is, again, like I'm not pointing fingers or blame, but opening registration and setting fees backs the Recreation Commission into a situation where we cannot then say to baseball or softball or soccer, whatever sport it may be, the field fees are increasing, because that would then, unless they're going to eat that out of their own treasury, they're going to have to then go back to people and say, the field fee has to go up. So, we should try better to work with the leagues before they open registration, because I would have thought that we could have delayed the opening of baseball registration to firm up the field fee discussion, so they could have that written into their new fees if need be.
Well, I did talk to some people, and they did know that field fees were going to be raised.
Okay, all right, good. So as long
Yeah,
as
no,
they
and I've seen it. Softball's aware of it. I don't know what you've talked to baseball about, but on the same token, I know I have a meeting tomorrow night for an update on it, but I know baseball has taken a hold of their advertising program to try to bring in some more field maintenance for this season. So I'll get an update on where they stand with that tomorrow night. So that's being factored in as well. And that kind of
And I
messes
don't,
that a little bit.
I also think I'm not interested in, making the fees go crazy, especially at all. I hope they don't. I just hope that we get more equal distribution per person and per age group. I do think they probably will go up for the kids a little bit, and if it for the older kids, and I think we can do it in a 2-step process. It doesn't have to be all at once.
Mhm.
I mean, I don't want to shell shock anyone.
Right.
with
So
a price.
I guess my question to Charlie's point now, and it's sort of what I was thinking in having this discussion tonight at this meeting. Is this something that are we losing money right now to the point where we need to decide at this moment for this season right now that we need to raise it now? Or is this something that we can have the analysis done over the next month, discuss it at the next meeting, come to a firm structure, and then for the I guess the next allocation meeting, have a firm fee in place so they can plan for it? Because there is a summer season. If the health concerns aren't a problem and they continue on, that we're going to have somewhat normal summer, at least on the baseball side, it sounds like, and probably the softball side. So that's my question. Do we need to get this done now so we're not losing money, or do we have some time?
Well, I think if we did it right now, we would be guessing. And I don't know that that's, that would be right. I think we have to set a date for the spring allocation, which is probably in 2 weeks from now. I can email the organizations and say, there may be a slight price increase per player. I would be surprised if they wouldn't be able to, for the older group, and I don't know what the younger group, I don't think the younger group really played this year. The kindergartners, they didn't play this year. So,
right. So I guess that's my question.
Maybe that will be a price reduction. So,
right.
So there could be it could be a balance. I don't know. I don't want to say
Right.
without actually doing the numbers.
Price change.
Yeah. So I guess
I would not say a slight increase. I would say we're away from the word slight, because, and I think if anything that 2020 has taught us is that we have to expect the unexpected. And if I were in your position, I would be expecting that there could be delayed to some spring sports, and we don't know what the summer will be, because we don't know how the vaccine rollout will be. And sports are going to be really hard to do if you're just able to drop your kid off and you can't have more than 5 or 10 people at a field. So I do think we should look at this for the next one, and firm it up in that time, and then come to a decision on it at the next meeting for the spring allocation, because we should be able to position ourselves as a commission to make sure that in the event there are delays or seasons are canceled for future, there's a precedent that this isn't sudden. It was practice, was going to be put out, in the spring, but COVID-19 didn't allow us to have our spring. And so it's nothing new for the summer. It was planned for the spring. So, I do think we should probably move on this sooner rather than later.
Yeah, I think so. I would like to wait until next Wednesday when I get information
Yeah, no, that's
from the other rec departments to see what they do. There is one big difference though, is that there are a lot of towns that pay for field maintenance out of their budgets. And that doesn't happen with us.
Mhm.
So,
So I'm fine with that. And pushing up, but working towards this at the next meeting to
Yeah.
come to a firm decision. But I guess just my question, just to double check, if we do that, we're sticking with this fee structure for this season, for this spring season. Is that going to cause a financial issue for our account? Are we not going to be able to cover those costs? Because my point being is that we could, as you mentioned, temporarily put a small $5 increase per player just to cover something. Just say, hey, we're looking at the fee structure for the future, but we're just doing this on a temporary basis just for this season, just to cover our costs. But if we don't have to do that, I don't want to have to do it.
no, I think that's probably a good idea. It can be for a $5 increase for, say, grade 2 and up.
Yeah. Just, I'm thinking the wording could be just, I don't know if it's an emergency or just a temporary $5 increase to cover our costs as we review our field policy or our field fee policy, and we plan to have it done by the policy done for the summer allocation meeting, or if that's how we want to order.
Okay. And why don't we, and maybe it should be for grade 3 and up.
Okay.
I have to,
Yeah, I think you need to do the financial modeling to see what the differential is going to be, you know what I mean, like by tiering it. But I agree. I think you should tier it by age. And I think if you're going to do it, I don't think you do 5. I think you probably start at 10.
but I think because I think without doing, from what I know now, and so for example, and I'm not going to talk baseball because that gets, all different fields, but so travel soccer played, they start at grade 2. There's a lot of repair that needs to be done for field B. If we don't get that done, that field's actually going to be shut for the spring because of the wear in certain areas. It's not in great shape. And that's starting at grade 2 and up, and that's the cross fields. So it's not the full length field, it's the cross fields. And there are significant bare spots that need to be fixed. So I do think that, that's probably going to be $3,000. And that was one, to do everything correctly. Now, can I get it seeded and maybe some tarps down? Hopefully, but I'm going to have to go back and do some additional work there. So, and that's, grade 2 and up, but it's 3 times a week. And if they only played 2 times a week, it'd probably be a lot less. There probably might be bare spots, but there wouldn't be as much of a depression. And that's when you start to have to.
I agree with Charlie. I think you should, for those older grades, I think $10 should be, for those grades. And maybe even keep the kindergartners at 30.
So
Yeah.
I think that's a separate discussion. I think that's for next time, what we're going to do permanently. More what I'm talking about is, do we want to do something right now?
Yeah.
Because we can't alter our fee structure at this point, as we've all pointed out with the registration opening. Do we need the money right now?
No, but see, Will, I disagree with you on that. I'm sorry. We serve at the pleasure of the town of Norfolk, not the Baseball Association. The Baseball Association is like, we are the stewards of the town's fields and the various aspects that happen in this town. It's not Ann's fault, and nor is it the fault of this commission, that Barry and the baseball board decide to open up registration before circling back and confirming in detail. And not to mention, the affirmation that there was going to be 0 delays with the start of spring baseball was, again, not a very good look from a PR perspective. So I don't think if we have to alter it, that's their mea culpa. That's not our fault. And as somebody who pays a substantial amount of tax dollars in this town, I would imagine all of us who are participating in that side of being a resident of Norfolk would say, well, wait a second. If it lessens the burden on the rec commission that baseball has to go back to their constituency and say, sorry, we made a boo-boo, there's a mistake in the field fee, we're going to have to increase it by $5 or $10, so be it. If that lessens the burden that we have to take on to repair fields that those baseball players, which my son is one of, is using and tearing up. I mean, that's just the reality of it. I disagree that if we have to do it and we have to do it ASAP, that baseball has to go back and fix that.
Yeah, I'm not saying that we can't do it, and it's not really baseball I have in mind. I mean, that's that. I just don't think it's a good practice for us to, in fact, because if we're going to vote on this and have the analysis done that we want to do, we can't do this till February, our next meeting. So at that point, we're already past the allocation meeting. We're past the point of everyone opening their registrations, not just baseball. And I don't necessarily think it's a good practice from this board to change our field fees at that point in time. If it's something we want to do, we should have it done at least a month in advance prior to these things being done. And if we were strapped, that's why I suggested that perhaps we temporarily increase it slightly for this season so as to not shock people and out of the blue come up with something. But I'm not comfortable with altering the entire fee structure after the field allocation meeting occurs. And I'm with you guys that this needs to be done with thought and with analysis and using our numbers, but I just don't think, I don't necessarily have anything with baseball. I don't care if they have to go back to the constituency, but in general, to change that after every organization has opened their registration in February just doesn't seem like something I would think this board would want to be known for, right? I mean,
Well, so Will, I mean, I've been.
But if we
telling
can't take care of the
people that
field,
I have been talking to the sports organizations about this. I mean, was very clear with softball saying,
Mhm.
I felt I was very clear, saying that we're doing an analysis. I mean, I started last summer. I mean, it's not a surprise to organizations. The only surprise there might be is Norfolk youth soccer because they didn't play. So I
Yeah.
haven't spoken to them. And I also don't sort of picture that as the group because they have younger players generally, even though they go up to age 17, there are very few players that are actually, middle school and higher, and they play twice a week. I mean, they're sort of the one group that fits into our structure as it is.
all right.
In my-
Can I say one thing, just because I know that Kim's got to go? What if I mean, I don't know this is possible because I don't know, but could we get this, say table it for right now, but have you kind of check it out before we meet to do the other half of this, say next week, and then we'll know, and then we can
Yeah,
vote or not
I'll
vote on
spend
it?
some time. I'll spend some time this week and I'll get you some numbers. We're just
Okay.
not, I just don't think we can wait. And if you're
Right,
not going to
but-
have a meeting, if we're going to have another meeting next week, I'll get some numbers for you.
Okay.
Yeah, and then I would just say you look at that, you look at those numbers, and then you model that against what your anticipated maintenance costs are going to be for fingers crossed, right? A full season of the spring and summer, and where that would be putting you in, because this isn't, the loss of the revenue from soccer, right? Like we took hits in various sectors or spaces of the rec efforts this year, right? Because of COVID-19. So there is not as much money as there has been in the past, likely. And so, I would definitely do some benchmarking on that, like what your anticipated cost, to your point, right? That one of the fields is in such bad shape, if we don't get some maintenance on it, we're going to have to not use it. So, just to close out my thought on it is, if we have to go back or we have to change it before the league's, register or after the league's registration fees is opened, if that's what it takes to pay for the fields, I mean, that's a small thing to do to make sure that the kids can play on safe fields. I mean, just further to the point, because we don't have turf fields, right? I mean, this would be a non-conversation.
Well, yeah, and that's the thing, like, if the kids aren't safe, that's not good.
Yeah.
Fields aren't safe, and
Yeah, I mean,
that's the most important thing.
Yeah, that's what this comes down to. It's not
Yeah.
about, I think if we all had the way we wanted, there wouldn't be field fees, and we certainly wouldn't be raising them. But we have to be able to, we shouldn't have to pick and choose which field to fix. If they have lips too high on a baseball field or a softball field or have holes on a soccer field, they should be fixed, period.
Okay, so I guess did we want to just, obviously, we're not going to decide tonight because we need the analysis. So did we want to do next week? Is that
Sure.
prior to the field allocation meeting? That way, by that time, we can have that set in stone and it's very clear with everyone what we're looking at.
Yes, I'll send some I'll email people numbers this week. I have to blind copy you all, but I'll give you numbers so you have something to think about before the meeting.
Okay, and we can keep it just to the field fees next week, so we don't have to meet, the full hour and a half or whatever. It's just enough time to have a discussion and go over this and make a decision. All right?
And I'm so sorry again. I feel terrible.
That's okay. So are we going to continue with the meeting now still?
Yeah, I think
Okay.
that's the big discussion piece for this week. So I would just say the rest is mostly updates, so we can wrap up the meeting this week for a full meeting.
Thank you,
Okay.
guys. I'm gonna head out and I'm free next week, any night, so I don't have anything going on. My life is very boring. Thanks, guys.
All right,
Okay,
thanks, Kim.
thanks.
I mean, unless you folks felt differently, I mean, we could continue the rest of the agenda next week when we discuss that. I mean, that's fine with me as well. I sort of figured we're here, we might as well
Make
Get
use
it
of our
done.
time. Sure.
and
Yeah.
just meet short for quickly next week to go over what we need to go over.
Yep.
So, all right. So that'll wrap that up then. So kind of in the same thing, Springfield allocation meeting, obviously we have to set that. So Ann, you had mentioned 2 weeks out.
Well, usually it's the first week of February. So, but let's look at the calendar. Doesn't have to be. I mean, so, so next week is Martin Luther King Day, correct? So we should probably have the next rec meeting on the 19th to follow up. I thought we were, I'm a little confused. I thought we were going to meet next week because when Kim was leaving, we were going to stop and then continue next week.
Yeah, I mean,
So-
it was,
But are we
Yeah.
continuing tonight and then next week just talking about field allocation?
yeah, unless anyone has an objection, I would say just push through with the meeting tonight. I mean, it's mainly just updates on different topics coming up. Unless someone feels differently, I have no problem just continuing on next week.
There's nothing that needs to be voted on.
There is
That's-
not as far as I know,
Didn't-
nothing on the topics that I've put on. I don't know, Ann, if there's anything in the budget that needed to be voted on, or if that was just a brief.
No.
overview.
I mean, the budget's the budget, so
All right,
no one's ever, usually don't vote on it. I mean, you can't, I suppose you could, but it's just preliminary numbers that I'm giving. There's nothing to vote on yet.
okay. So I would say let's just get through
So
it.
do you want to set a meeting next week for the rec commission? The
Yeah,
19th, which is a Tuesday at 7 PM? I don't know what works best, 7 or 7:30.
If possible, the earlier the better, just because,
I agree. So you guys can decide.
Yeah, 7's good with me. So
typically starts
7's fine
around
with me on
6,
Tuesdays.
So, yeah, 7 would be more ideal.
Okay,
all right,
okay. All right,
So,
and then for
so on
field
the 19th at
allocation,
7 PM, right?
so field allocation, if we were to have it the first week of February, which is the typical time, I think we should probably have it. My gosh, February 2nd is a Tuesday. So why don't we have that meeting? This is so sad. That was my mother-in-law's birthday, my mother-in-law who just passed away. And today is the 1-year anniversary of my mother's passing.
Sorry to hear that.
All right, I'm
Little
sorry.
remembrances that just sneak up on you. So
So,
we could
I'm
have
I'm
field,
sorry,
the
I was
field,
putting the other one as, the 19th you said, for the February meeting?
yes.
So the
And-
Friday?
No, for the January meeting, January 19th, next week.
Right, for next week. But then what was the February for the field allocation meeting?
The 2nd,
The 2nd. Oh,
okay. And you want to do 7 for that too?
yes.
Okay. I like that timeline. That way we can iron this down, and then by that time at the meeting, we'll have everything set for them and
Yeah.
ready to go. I think that's a fair timeline.
I can also, I mean, I think I've mentioned this. I mean, I have been emailing people about the field fee increases or changes, whatever you want to say. And I can say, these are under consideration. So if you want to hold off on your registration, you can.
That might be wise, just to mention that we'll have the final numbers by the field allocation meeting.
Okay.
I can't see any league being surprised that we would have to do this.
They've all, again, the only organization that I have not spoken to is Norfolk Youth Soccer.
So, yeah.
And it's the
Well-
one, or even though they're the biggest organization, it's the one organization that sort of, they fit right into our allocation. They play twice a week, certain ages. I mean, maybe the older, I still don't even think the older kids are playing. There's one team that plays old. It's,
Yeah, small group.
yeah.
All right, so
Okay.
sounds good to me. All right, so 2021 Cultural Council grants.
Yeah. So
Andy, I'll talk about that real
did
quick.
apply for a local cultural council grant. It's really odd not knowing what we're going to be able to do or what we're going to be able to have. So the rule is that you can't apply for the same thing 2 years in a row, although I've always applied for concerts every year. But this year they seem to be a little emphasizing that more. So I asked them if I could apply for a concert because our last concert application changed to a drive-in movie. And they said I could, so I did that. But they also said that as long as we set a date for the drive-in movie. But then they also said the date could change because they understand that everything is just a moving target these days. So I think you probably, and this can be done next week if you want to decide, pick a date. And we can say we're going to have a drive-in movie on that date.
What, since so many of us aren't traveling these days, maybe when's like that February vacation? Like,
Say that again. I'm sorry.
since like so many of us are not traveling, right? Like typically February vacation, like a good amount of people go away, they go skiing, they go down to Disney World, yada, yada, yada. Well, if we're likely to be stuck at home still, why don't we do it around that week?
We just have to figure what parking lot we can use.
Yeah, that was sort of the issue that we've been having. I mean, and Charlie, to I guess to bring you up to speed, because I don't think you were here back in December. So Kim had reached out to the Cracker Barrel Fairgrounds through the Rentham State School or the Rentham Developmental Center, and they basically said, we love the idea, we want to do it, just not now because of COVID. And at that time, cases were increasing, and now they're even higher than they were at that point. And I believe she reached out to the school as well. And I think the response, if I remember correctly, was similar. It was good idea. Not sure. No.
It was they reached out to the high school, and the principal said that it would depend on what the Rentham Board of Health said.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So
what about the middle school? Like,
their parking lot has a lot of berms and trees in it.
I've only been there really late at night. Like,
I mean, the parking lots. They're really nice parking lots in town. I have to tell you, like berms and trees are usually really nice.
Yeah.
But
yeah, so it's just one of those things. I'm concerned that we're not going to be able to get a location, especially in that short period of time. Kim just left. Kim was taking the lead on it, and she had, reached out to all these groups. And I even think if you didn't have COVID, you might have had a better run at the MBTA. Although with more people there, maybe not.
Yeah.
But they were concerned about the same thing, and having people on there, and someone gets COVID and then sues them, I think was probably in their mind. So I just don't know, unless we host it on recreation property like Pond Street, if we're going to be able to do it.
And St. Jude's is a no-go. You don't think that that's big enough, Ann?
I think St. Jude's would be great, but I think that you'd have to deal with the archdiocese and you come up with a plan, and I think they would charge, and I think there would be all sorts of
I don't know
lawyer
if that's the
fees.
case though, because each church is its own corporation. Yeah, no,
Charlie,
it
just
is.
what I went through with the lease for remote learning.
Yeah, but there's a difference. Remember, Ann, that's inside the church with.
So do actually,
people-
does anyone attend the church?
Yeah, I'm a parishioner of St. Jude's.
Can you ask, like, just
Yeah.
ask the priest?
Because
Just say,
like,
hey, I'm on the rec commission. We're really in a bind. We just want to have something for the, a free program for the
yeah, it's
residents.
free, exactly. You know,
And is there any chance we can just use the parking lot?
because
You'd
I
never
don't
know we were
think-
there. We'd come
Yeah.
in, we'd put in we'd put in a porta potty just in case anyone needed to use it. Because
Yeah.
you do have to have bathrooms no matter what.
Yeah,
Even though softball, I have to tell you, suggested that we don't have any portable toilets to save money. And I thought to myself, I don't know how anyone can bring a family to ball fields and not have a place for them to go to the bathroom.
yeah. But I think that's asking for a mess that none of us want.
Yeah, I'm like, I'm not doing that.
Yeah, no,
So-
I'll call the pastor over there. It may be different, and because they have the right to hold their own parish fairs, and it's different. So we obviously provide all the insurance and all that stuff. So yeah, I'll call them tomorrow, and it may take a couple of days because sometimes priests have.
It's, I had to go through so much with them with the remote learning. Maybe if I was thinking if someone else,
Yeah,
work,
no, for sure.
just another person.
And I think that that's largely due to the fact too that you're inside the church premises.
Could be.
Teaching
Yep.
kids.
It certainly
There's
couldn't
just a
hurt
lot
to
of other
ask.
risks associated with it, right? Unsupervised children to, parents dropping off. So yeah, no, I can certainly ask, and it's free. I mean,
And I'm sure, not that it's really an issue with a public recreation movie, but I'm sure there would have to be some consideration given to what movie is being shown on their property.
yeah, The Exorcism of Emily Rose is probably.
Yeah, I mean, not that it's a huge
Yeah.
concern with the crowd we're going for here, but just,
Yeah,
things we're gonna have to consider.
yeah, no,
Okay.
totally agree.
That would be great. Who knows? Maybe
Yeah.
they'll just say yes. That would be that.
Yeah.
Like it's 2019 again. And people
Yeah.
can just say yes without a problem.
Yeah.
Have we narrowed down the movies just out of curiosity, and just because he may
Oh,
have?
I think we did talk about some, and I'm not going to remember them. I'm at my home, so I don't have all my notes with me.
Yeah, I'll say something that's completely family friendly. We're aiming for family oriented type movies.
I know we had talked about Star Trek, but wasn't there like that
Star Wars.
baseball movie?
Star Wars.
Oh yeah, the
There was a Star
Sandlot.
Wars, but there was a baseball movie. What was that?
Sandlot.
Yeah, Sandlot.
Yeah, yeah, all very good movies. Yeah, all right,
Yeah.
that's fine. Yeah, I'll call him tomorrow.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep.
Excellent. All right. Does anyone else have anything else on that topic?
No, we just need to, we just need to, even if we aren't sure of a date, we just need to pick one,
Yeah.
and it can change. But that's what the local cultural council, I think they just want to know we're acting on it.
Spend that
You
money.
know, it's not just, not just not doing anything.
We'll print out the stacks of email correspondence and say here, I promise you. Okay, so I mean, we could tell them if you're aiming for February vacation, we can just pick something on that week and just
Yeah.
use that. And then if it gets pushed off, it gets pushed off because of COVID and
And
considerations.
yeah, and we have money in the gift fund if we have to use that. We do have it. I really feel like we need to be given things. We need to give the families in town something to do. As many
I
things
agree.
to do as possible.
All right, so then I say we go with that date, and then if it works, it works. If not, we just keep pushing as we have been.
Okay.
All right, FY fiscal year 2022 budget. So I know Ian, you had some preliminary info on that.
So I updated the capital budget, and as part of that, I can send everything to you tomorrow. I don't think I sent that to you. Oh, you know,
No.
so I took out the mats and the wood chips for the playground because we did it. I ordered the chips in. There's a pile of chips at Pond Street. That's actually a very small portion of what we had to do at the H. Olive Day School. We actually brought in 140 yards of chips, and that was covered under the CARES Act. And then the mats were purchased, but the big, huge savings was the installation cost. The facilities group for the town, which is the schools, agreed to do the installation themselves. And then Justin at DPW, I ordered 46 mats for Pond Street, and he agreed to do the installation on those. So with us doing the installation in-house, that saves about $10,000. So it becomes a non-capital item. And we also, none of us were expecting that the playground at the H. Olive Day School was going to get as much use as it had to get used. So it just had to get taken care of. I went over there. It was just like, it was an accident waiting to happen. It needed to get done right away. So that's done. And then I updated the other items just to move a couple out of fiscal year. And I updated like the Pond Street. I made it $100,000 because that's what the CPC had allocated, even though it may not necessarily be that. And then today, I also I submitted our operating budget, which is preliminary numbers. It's kind of the same thing we're asked for at all times, a 0% and a 3%. So if it's level service with no more money or level dollars, what the change would be. And I decreased our expense budget from 2,300 to 500. I decreased my raise from 3% to 2%. Kathy would get her raise. And then I also I had to decrease her hours by 3/4 of an hour, but that's okay. She'd still be working the same number of hours. It's just that the recreation would be paying for that 45 minutes and not the operating budget. It's not that her actual hours would decrease.
And just out of curiosity, are we going to be able to get her back here at these meetings taking the minutes?
No.
And there's no way to make that happen, just because I know I've expressed this in this year's budget, because I have expressed this to Will, like those of us who are elected were elected to a town office, position, and we're charged with, doing the meetings, actively participating in them. So it does, when somebody is taking the meeting minutes, if they're not able to carve out the time to then go back and watch the Zoom meeting or the pre-recorded minute, the audio, they have to do it in that meeting, which then causes, I think, conflict on whether or not they're able to really fully execute the duties of their office or their appointment to the commission. So,
well, I did put a note and I certainly I did put a note saying that the amount was eliminated. I can't, from last year, and I didn't take it out. I kept it on there and said, this was eliminated. I can go back and ask for that increase again. I will tell you that Kathy doesn't want to do it.
Well, there are a lot of things in my job that I don't want to do either, but.
Well, the tricky part is she started doing it, for up until we had the person on the rec commission that had some issues. The commissioners used to take the minutes, and then she started doing it, but she's always struggled with it. Takes her a lot of hours to do the minutes. And she has said that she thinks that and again, if she doesn't, it doesn't mean that if it's not her, it can't be someone else. I mean, there are people hired as secretaries to commissions that are very good at taking notes and putting minutes together. It doesn't have to be her.
Yeah,
So-
yeah. Then I do think that I think that that's something, and we can table it for this meeting until we get the entire group back. That is something I think we should seriously consider, particularly for a couple of reasons. I think of the Pond Street project, and that is a huge undertaking, which these meetings will turn into very important meetings, and we're having very important discussions where, one, the meeting minutes need to be very accurate and reflective of the discussion that's taking place for the public to go back and gain access to those meeting minutes if they want to. But then also, two, again, I agree with you that it doesn't have to be her, but we ought to look for somebody, because we need everyone in those larger discussions, whether it's field allocations or the Pond Street project or other, like the bike path project, right? Like those are discussions and discourse that has to take place, and it's for the betterment of the town. And the town has put us on this commission to make sure that we're acting in their best interest.
If as a group that you want me to go back and ask for that $2,000 to be reconsidered and ask for a secretary, and I could ask if there's even someone available to do those minutes. If you decide as a group you want me to do that, I'm happy to do that.
We can definitely discuss it as the full group. My 2 cents on the topic, I personally don't like doing the minutes either. I'm doing it because it was something that we could do as a commission to help deal with the budget cuts. I would say that probably no one enjoys doing them. It's just sort of something that I don't have a huge deal doing it, just to make everyone's life easier, and to kind of not have to drain that money from the town. If the town has the money that they want to give, I don't see the harm in taking it and getting a secretary, because I think Charlie has a lot of good points, and that it's helpful to not have to worry about doing them, and being able to actively participate and not have to carve out that time later on. We're all busy, but if the town doesn't have it, I'm certainly not gonna, I'm not gonna, create.
Well, there are other things too, right? Like that the town offers like people to participate in, where they receive a reduction in their property taxes. The town can get creative. I find it hard pressed that they can't come up with the $2,000. Just but it is what it is. But again, I think as these larger projects that loom that are going to require our interactive discussion and involvement and participation, and these meetings oftentimes, and we all actively participate, which is a good thing, but these meetings do oftentimes run longer than an hour and a half or an hour. And, it's to then have to find that time to listen to the full meeting, and it becomes problems. It becomes problematic, particularly, for those of us who have children, like, we're also acting in a lot of ways as like educators at home. We're working flex schedules in our job. There are a lot of things that we're all doing in these challenging times. And if the town would be open to possibly giving somebody who qualifies for a reduction in their, a credit in their property taxes because they want to be a secretary to the Recreation Commission, I think that's a fantastic idea. I
don't know if that's a senior thing.
Maybe
But
honestly,
again, if you want me to ask, I can ask. However they come, if you want me to ask, I can ask. However they come up with the money, that's up to them.
and maybe it's even worth, if we can't get the money, just putting the feelers out to see if someone wants to do some community service. It'd have to be someone who can do it properly, but you never know. There's some people who are looking for something to do. It's not a huge lift. It's once a month, you generally coming on a meeting for a couple hours and putting together maybe we can find someone that's interested. If not, if there's no money available.
Okay, so you want me to ask?
Yeah,
I would say so. I'm done. It doesn't hurt to ask ever.
Okay, I'll ask. I'll send an email tomorrow and say we had a meeting last night. I submitted my budget today. They were due today. But I can easily say we had a meeting last night. This came up. We want this back, and see what they say. Go from there.
Perfect. So is that it for the budget, or?
Just the only other thing I wanted to tell you is that I have a capital budget presentation tentatively scheduled for February 16th with the selectmen.
All right. All right, so next two items, I guess I can just group them together because they sort of go together. The Freeman land trade and then the Pond Street project. So the land trade, I can't remember when because it feels like months ago, but Ann and I met with the Conservation Commission as a follow-up to discuss the potential trading of the piece of land that abuts the train tracks and then the soccer field, I think what field I in the way back at Freeman. Do I have the letter right?
Yep, you do.
Perfect. And then perhaps trading some of that for the land over at Pond Street that we just acquired.
Yeah, I don't know that they're actually talking about trading. That's the only.
It was true. It was mentioned that maybe we could do that, but in general, they didn't know if they could do it. They went back, they went through the deed, and there's nothing restricting them from doing it, and they voted to agree to give us that property over at the Freeman School. So we should be able to more efficiently and in a more environmentally friendly way develop a soccer field.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know that they voted as a definite thing. I think they're
Well,
still looking into it.
They were, but I felt in general we were moving in the right direction on that one.
Absolutely. That I would certainly agree with.
So
I think they want it. They're trying to figure out what they want in return.
yeah, there was that, and then they had to figure out who was actually going to initiate the trade, but it's well on its way. It seems like
so-
it's going to go.
Just to let you know, I did just put a feeler out to Tree Tech to ask how much it would cost to clear the land. There still would need to be work, but the first thing is to cut the trees down. So I want to get a quote from them. I also want to get a quote from an owner operator, which that person would not have to pay prevailing. I don't think we have to pay prevailing wage to an owner operator. So could be an hourly wage.
Yeah, and if you want another name, we just had to have some tree work done because we had lost a ton of trees in that terrible windstorm that we had back in like the early fall, which actually totaled my wife's car. And he was this young gentleman was fantastic, and went to school for it, the agricultural school in Walpole, and so I think his name is Mike. He's a young guy. But I can get you his name when we chat tomorrow, Ann.
Sure. Send it along.
All right, and then on the Pond Street piece to this whole deal, I don't really have a major update for it. I just wanted to put it on here just to sort of figure out what our next steps are. At the CPC meeting last week, Cindy briefly said that she had been in contact with you, Ann, and about what we needed to do as a board, and then she had some items she was going to follow up on. So I just kind of wanted to see as a board what we need to do to start pushing this thing forward and make sure we don't lose any momentum on it.
I was waiting for Cindy to tell us what to do. I don't know.
So I was too. And she had seen, she had made it seem like she reached out to us. I told her to let me know what she needs. So
if I apologize if I missed something.
No, I don't, you probably didn't. I think she had mentioned that it kind of fell by the wayside during the holidays, and certainly had for me. I had been meaning to reach out to her the entire month just to see what we needed to do. So we can get into contact with her then. She was going to handle, I think she was going to reach out on the E&F filing that needed to occur.
Yeah,
I think she mentioned that she had forwarded on, or I think Carol Green had forwarded the certified article to the state. So they have that piece, but obviously there was a list of things that needed to get done. So then I'll keep it on the list to reach out to Cindy about that and figure out where we need to go. Figure out what we need to do.
Okay.
But I mentioned to her, and I made it clear in the last meeting, I'm a phone call, email away, let me know what we need to do. But she seemed to indicate that she was going to step aside from essentially once she kind of got to a certain point and let us take it and
Yeah,
handle it as a board. But
right.
I'm
Yep.
sort of waiting to figure out when that point is. So, all right, does anyone else have any questions, comments on that? All right, field maintenance updates. On my end, only update I have, I know Ann, you have some, I know there was a lot that was sent over to DPW this weekend. But from my perspective, I am meeting with baseball tomorrow night, or I'm participating in their meeting, I suppose. They are, as we discussed, they're getting together an advertising program in order to bring in this Jeff Boyle, from who used to work at STS maybe once or twice, 3 times a year, something like that, to discuss, to do some routine maintenance on the fields. It's fallen a little bit through the cracks over there. I've been keeping an eye on it. I know I saw an email from Barry yesterday. It's in the court of Dave Anderson right now. Dave was supposed to reach out to Jeff, and Dave wanted to walk the fields with Jeff, and then I was going to attend, and then Barry was going to attend, and we were going to kind of walk it and figure out what sort of scope baseball wanted to set based on how much they expected to bring in and what we wanted to do, I guess, as a rec commission, and then move forward from there. I think they were thinking of sort of something limited to start, see how it goes, see what they can do, and then expand it in years to come. But at this point, the field walk hasn't occurred. So tomorrow night, I should have more information on that piece. So, Ann, I know you have some stuff, I guess, from DPW's perspective.
So I sent a list over to DPW. The one field that really does need maintenance for the spring is Field B at Pond Street. Definitely some bare spots. Again, if we had more fields, when we have more fields, I really think we need to set up some practice areas versus game areas, because I watched people on that field and they stand in the same place. They every practice, every game, and we have the front of Field B is not usable. So we'll see how that goes. We didn't get tarps down or seed down, which is fine because it really needs to be down for the month of March. So I told DPW that that's what needs to be done. Well, and haven't heard back from them, but that's fine. It was just, I literally just sent them the email. The other thing, couple of things I've mentioned other than, some playground maintenance and was the entrance to Pond Street, especially the south entrance, and the very large potholes that if you have a low riding car, you could easily bottom out. At this point, DPW has always fixed that. The highway department of DPW has always fixed that every year, but that's kind of gone by the wayside. I had asked for the same thing, that the access road at Freeman Kennedy to be fixed. And the last time I asked, I basically was told, I have the 2 guys from grounds and whatever they can do, they can do. But it's getting worse and worse. And every time it rains, there are huge puddles. And it's really like, I don't know, it's like it's riding the wave going in there. So I think if I understood correctly, it was because they didn't have the right piece of equipment to do anything else. So I've asked them if they can't do anything more to head me in the right direction and to give me the name of an outside vendor so I can call them and get it fixed, because it's I don't know if you want to go for a ride, go drive your car down the Freeman Kennedy access road. So those are kind of the couple of things that are going on in the middle of the winter.
Excellent. Anyone else?
I've also asked them to remove the goals from the field. I've told them that this can be done every year. Like they don't have to wait for me. They can come up with a plan, move them off the field, move them on the field.
What's a plan? Do we even know what a plan is around these parts?
Yeah.
All right. Does anyone else have anything to add there? All right. So that just leaves CPC updates. So briefly, we met Wednesday last week, discussed housing production plan, which is largely irrelevant to this commission. I'm happy to talk about it anytime if anyone would like to discuss it. And we did talk about the Greenway, the Metacomet Greenway going in. So I don't know, I can't remember the update I had last time, but in case I didn't mention it or it wasn't a reality at that point, Mary Gould, who is the owner of the property that we've been talking about on Hill Street, has passed away. So that property now lies with her estate, and I believe it was her partner or her friend is in charge of it, in charge of the estate now. So at the last meeting of CPC, I think we kind of came to the conclusion as a group that it's time to act one way or another. Cindy had reached out to the realtor previously, and in fact, previous to Mary passing, and he had said that make an offer and explain what the offer is for and what the purpose is, and you will see what happens. He was not particularly fond of the idea of going for an easement on the property, which was discussed as a secondary option, just because he felt that if someone did want to buy it and build on it, it's just a huge encumbrance to have an easement for that
Yeah.
on the property. So the committee agreed to get we have an appraisal on the property. They have agreed to get it renewed because it's past a year, and Cindy said it's about a rule of thumb with CPC that appraisals are good for about a year. So we're going to have that redone. And then we also approved and gave the go-ahead to Rich McCarthy, town planner, to kind of shop around a feasibility study on our piece of the trail. So I think we're thinking at our next meeting in February, we will be able to actually approve, hopefully, an article for an amount of money. We saw the scope, he drafted out the scope, and then he's going to shop that around, and hopefully sometime not next month, the month after that, we'll be able to vote on an amount of money to get that on the town meeting warrant for the spring. It was also discussed trying to get approval for purchase of the land in the spring. I don't see how that's going to happen, but they are ready to act once we get that appraisal. So some good news there.
It's great.
That was about it. And I reiterated our non-interest in that Main Street property as well. We were asked about that. And I think they're just waiting on affordable housing for that. All right.
Which one is that? Well, is that the White House on Main Street?
I can't remember if it's white.
Yeah, it's white.
Yeah. Is it? It is. Yeah. Now that I
Yeah.
think
It's
about it. So
actually a
that's-
really cute, it's a really cute house, except it's falling apart.
Yeah, no, the house is,
Falling apart would be an understatement, Ann.
yeah, the house was not usable.
It is.
So I
Have you
now
ever watched
remember,
have you ever watched that show Hometown?
Yeah.
The houses they find.
yeah, so that's
like that.
essentially the case. So you and Charlie, I keep forgetting that you weren't here. So basically what we discussed was the value of the property to us, without throwing up the map, the town purchased a piece of property behind that. And the entrance to that property that we own is a very small, narrow road off of Main Street, further down, like pretty much right at the Franklin town line. You
Yeah.
can kind of drive in and get back there. So in looking at it, if we were to say be interested in putting a field there, you couldn't put a field necessarily on this particular 373 Main Street property, but it would serve as, say, a U-turn, kind of a big U, not a U-turn, but a big U, where you could have an entrance on one side, go back into the property where the fields would be, and then exit to the other side.
Mhm.
It borders it, so you could also add on, put some of the field there, but I just figured with Pond Street, there's absolutely no need right now to discuss building a field over there when we have this big
That-
project out ahead of us.
That house is also on the opposite side of where it would be, if it's feasible to put a field on that property anywhere, it's feasible on the other end of the property. And then to have parking there, and then you'd have to have people walk, because the trees you would have to take down to create a road. It's not,
And it wasn't particularly flat. The
no,
parcel that the town owns was a lot better, But that piece was a big hill. It's up the hill to get to the
Yeah.
house, and then it just basically just goes up until you get to the
Yeah.
very top. It just
And they're
wasn't.
really, on that side of the property, they're much larger trees than on the other side. There is an area behind the white, the antique house that's pretty level with trees that are maybe 20, 30 years old,
Yeah.
not 200 years old. So I have to say, I have a very hard time taking down big trees, very, very hard time. And for a driveway, I wouldn't do it.
Yeah, no, it would be a lot. So I think they're going to affordable housing at this point to see if they have interest. But in terms of our interest, I just said nothing here, as we discussed. So, all right.
I do have one thing for the end.
All right.
Sorry.
No.
So something that just came up in the past few days, there are a couple of what they call quick build grants that are being put out there by the state. And one is called Shared Winter Streets. So it's to create easier access for walking and like things like sidewalks, except that there's a big caveat. So there's an emphasis with the grant that's open now that has to be applied for by the end of this month for things for seniors. Now, the quick build grant, you apply for it by the end of January, but it has to be built by May 31st. So if you don't have a plan for sidewalks in place, to get that done is essentially impossible. Unless you have a dedicated crew that is working full time on doing that. But what one can do, first thing that came to my mind, and I will say Sherry Norman, the senior center director, she sent an email out to everyone, myself, Blair, Blythe, Rich McCarthy. And I think a lot of the comment back going is like, oh my gosh, that's not enough time to do anything, because it really is very tricky. But the first thing that came to my mind was Peace Park. What we had talked about so many times about what we're going to do with Kids Place and making that a park for the people at Hillcrest. And Sherry is would really like, yes, she would like to see sidewalks, but she'd really like to see crosswalks, which is huge into making a town walkability, even more walkable, even if you don't have ideal sidewalks. If you have crosswalks, people tend to go a little bit slower. There's all sorts of things. So we're actually going to pursue that. I'm going to talk to Blythe. I don't think Blythe ever brought it to the selectmen. We had talked about it. She was going to do it. And then there was another issue before the selectmen, and I think it got postponed, and I don't think it came back. So I'm going to ask her about that. And the other thought that came to my mind for this, which is not a difficult project, is more seating on Town Hill. There are 4 benches. I mean, I think it would be really nice. And again, this could be up to maybe Rich, the planner, doesn't agree with me. But if you go to a lot of commons, you see, seating along one whole edge. And, for concerts, you could easily put 10 more benches around Town Hill and have nice seating areas. And the benches that are there now, Recreation put in, and they're great, but they're right around the gazebo. There's nothing else on the distance. So I think more benches on Town Hill would be really nice. I don't know how any other people feel about it. But I am going to meet tomorrow. I'm going over to the senior center to look at their extra craft pile to see if I can raid that. But Libby O'Neill, the library director, is also, and Sarah Ward they're also going to be there. And we're going to talk about, because Libby said she would like to do more things on the Town Hill as well. I mean, it's really a beautiful area. And I do think, even when we get back to having concerts, if you had,
It's got great grass.
Pardon me?
The grass is impeccable.
It does have good grass.
No,
better
you're
now.
right. It's beautiful. I like the idea. I mean, hey, we have a seasoned population in this town. I mean, we should provide them the opportunity to go and enjoy the outdoors. And
Yeah, and it's, and especially like seniors, like if they go for a walk, a lot of times you do want to sit down when you get to the end, go, it would be nice to walk to the town hill, bring your paper, sit down, read the paper. But
yeah,
there's really not that many places to sit down. And if kids are playing on the gazebo, the only benches that are there are right there. So you're sort of like joining the party. And in this day of an age of social distancing, you don't really want to be joining the party.
Mhm.
So, but I think when we get back to cable, when we get back to having concerts, yes, they're on cable, but if for those people that want to go to Town Hill and maybe don't have a blanket or, I think having a nice places to sit is nice.
I think both of those projects you mentioned are excellent ideas, and I would certainly be supportive of either.
And if between Sherry and myself, if we can write the grant, and who knows if we're going to get it, but I think they're very doable.
Yep, and I think I remember, it's been a while, but I believe the neighbors of the old kids
Yeah.
place were supportive of that idea as well, which is an excellent asset to have. So definitely, if that's what comes out of it, I'd support that for sure.
Okay. Just wanted to let you know. And then the
Excellent.
other thing is that we're kind of struggling with our software a little bit. So, it's not custom software. It's very cookie cutter. So dealing with a lot of reporting problems and how to, especially with the remote learning, but we're getting there. But I may talk to another software company to see what their software offers. Spend a lot of time with the software.
Mhm.
Just wanted to let you know.
I'll tell you, I have dealt in all my jobs with databases, and they all stink. They all have problems. If anyone works for Salesforce, I'm apologizing now.
Well, right now, all our revenue from the remote learning is a negative number. So there you go.
Nice.
And speaking of that, the one thing I didn't mention earlier about the programming, we do have some issues with collecting fees from the remote learning. Fees are due at the beginning of the month. And right now for January, we still have about $12,000 outstanding.
To collect.
Yeah. And I've sent a general email to people that owe for January, and for people that owe, only a couple of people owe for November, and a few more owe for December. I've sent personal emails detailing what they owe and why they owe it, and to ask to please get back to us. I mean, there's, I do, a couple of the numbers are so large, I actually am concerned for the families. I'm not going to turn anyone away, but I wish it would be addressed. It would I'd like to close out 2020.
Yeah, and maybe you just, say that to them, that you just want to have a phone conversation. And
I already did. Yeah.
I think sometimes though, like, not knowing any of these family circumstances, like,
Yeah.
they're less likely to take a call if they think you're
Yeah. I actually haven't said I want to have a phone conversation with them. I actually don't want to put them on the spot like that. I just want them to address it in some way.
Mhm.
So I'm working on it. But
Yeah.
I mean, in this day and age, you just don't know what people's circumstances are. And I don't, if you're trying to work, you need a place for your kids to go, and I want to do as much as I can to help everyone. I don't want to put them in an uncomfortable spot, but I do also need to address the fact that the bills aren't paid. So,
Yeah.
that's all.
All right. Excellent. So does anyone else have anything to add before we adjourn this evening?
Donna does.
All right, Donna, let's hear it.
You were just talking about Kids Place. The 25 Rockwood Road is getting more houses. 194 Main Street, where Burke's was, is going to be more housing. So that leaves that little part empty in the middle. So whatever happens there could get more people using it.
It's gonna be a
medium.
it's gonna be a nice park for seniors that's fully accessible without any lip or curb that anyone has to deal with. So older people that have walkers and such have a nice place to go.
Okay,
That's what I would like. I would really love to see a park just for seniors, for the seniors that are really struggling with mobility. And I can't imagine how hard it must be for people that, they just want to go and sit outside and enjoy themselves. I mean, they have a walker and they get out of the car and they've got, so many places that are fully accessible supposedly, but you have to get
Right.
there first. So,
My poor 84-year-old grandmother has been cooped up for the last year. And I feel it's
Yeah.
like the worst thing in the world. It's just,
yeah,
it's
it's
awful.
heartbreaking.
Mhm.
It is. It's just heartbreaking.
So,
and I wanted to share a compliment. That Town Hill looks wonderful.
Oh, for the Christmas lights.
The Christmas lights, I noticed it right at the beginning. I don't know if it's the type of lights, but it's everything got covered this year. I said, oh, that's new, that's new.
It's,
And
it's a
then
combination of everything.
There's
Yeah.
lots of compliments on Facebook was like, oh my gosh, it's so wonderful. And somebody from out of town complimented. And so I wanted to make sure you knew that.
Thank you very much. I will say that they were able to put lights on an additional tree. I also bought a lot of lights this year and they are very bright and they're nice. They do look great.
Yes.
So, and DPW did do a good job. We might have a little bit of an issue with putting the cost to put lights up and take them down.
Ah.
We'll figure that out another time.
But DPW did their presentation at the select board and compliments were delivered to them.
I'm glad they did.
Everybody loves it. And he did give you credit.
Well,
Yep.
well, that's nice, but they did do a good
Recreation
job.
pays for them and DPW does what they can and hires a bucket.
Yeah, they do. And it's, but they did do a nice job this year. Everyone did.
Thank you.
Well, this certainly
Thanks.
was a year to have them in. So, it was a lot of nights driving around looking at people's Christmas lights. So
it was a good
They're still
competition
up
to
and
Gillette.
I
Yeah.
think Walpole is keeping theirs up through the month of January.
yeah.
Everyone just needs something to look at. They just need something.
All righty, so we do have our next meeting set up for next week. I don't know if we want to set up anything for February as well. I'll just get that on the books for our
It's
general
just, you
meeting.
want to do that when we have everyone here?
Yeah, that might be
Yeah.
a good idea because I don't know what
Yeah.
people look like for availability. So, all right.
Okay,
So I will then make a motion to adjourn the meeting.
Second.
sounds
Any
good.
discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, that is unanimous. The meeting is adjourned at 9:13 PM.